Okay, welcome to Faith and Friction, where we dive deep into the cultural, the political, the religious friction that we find out there as we apply our faith and all of this kind of stuff. So, Rev, here we are again, man.
I'm here, but I'm also ready to dive deeply into the personal. As it is out there, it will be within. As it is within, without. So it's a both and reality. So I'm ready to dive deep into my own psyche. Or belief system.
I better stand back a little bit. Then
I got
anyway,
a shovel.
right? So fun stuff tonight. I say fun, but sometimes friction isn't so fun, I think, right? And this episode, we are going to talk about faith when it comes into play with Christians' perspective of being persecuted in America.
Mac, you put out an article that it was interesting, my perspective, when I just saw the title, Christian Persecution in America, and I went immediately to, Christians persecuting others. And the whole article was the other way around. And I thought, there might be something to look at there. Well, persecution is happening religiously, right, left, up, down, inside, outside, all around.
Yes.
We're living in a persecutive, is that a word? Persecutive environment.
Well, nobody's immune.
Nope.
In any way, shape, or form. It can happen in all sorts of ways. We're going to talk about some of those on this episode.
Some personal responsibility, perhaps.
But let's just start out. Yes. Let's just start out with the fact everybody accept the personal responsibility because nobody's immune. Let's just start right there. If we can't
start there, this dialogue isn't going to go very far with you.
True. So let's dive right into it, right?
Yep.
But as we start, let's put some perspective around the word and the connotation and the physicality of what persecution. Using that word. What does it mean? What does it imply? How does it flesh itself out in the reality?
And are there degrees of persecution? Are there simple injustices or simple rudeness, or is there true persecution? There's many levels to that equation.
It got degrees of.
Yeah.
And so let's just start with the non-American as a perspective, as a compared to what? Persecution. You know what? I'm going to just say this before you even get going.
Let it out.
Christians need to stop using that word because it's flat out in America. Now, don't get me wrong. It's definitely, it prevails and it's, prevalent around the globe in a completely different way than it is in America. So my whole charge right now is stop using that word because it's the wrong
It's the wrong word for, again, minor inconveniences and rudeness.
Right.
It's like, I'm being persecuted. Come on, grow a pair. Let's just be honest. I know people whose family was put to death. Yeah. That's persecution.
Come on, guys.
And we have these thumbnails sometimes in our country where we take offense so easily, so quickly, and then claim the persecution card. And it's like, you might want to examine what you're really calling persecution and grow up a little bit. Get a little guts and courage and a backbone.
Well, it gives the cause that you are, fighting for or that you're proclaiming a whole lot more weight if you're using the word persecution, even versus the words marginalized or, other
discounted.
Things. Yes. Are those things happening?
Yep.
I agree. But if you've never, here's the thing. Because when I read this and I heard this, you're persecuting Christians in America. I mean, I've heard that. Mm-hmm. Try meeting somebody one time that's actually been persecuted. I've met them. I've seen them. I've heard their stories. Yeah. I've looked in their two different colored eyes because they were beaten.
Come face to face with real human suffering, and not the inconvenience of an American life. Yes, it hurts, but there's different levels to that. I've come face to face with suffering and pain that is beyond anything I've ever experienced.
Well,
let's put it in perspective.
Well, that's right. Let's just start this whole conversation out by putting it in perspective. This is where I'm going to be coming from we've talked about this, or, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think we're in sync with the fact that we're going to acknowledge that there is some marginalization, if you want it, whatever words you want to use.
You can find it if you're looking for it, and you've experienced it.
Yes. Yeah, but let's stop. We're going to stop using the word persecuted and deal with it from there and put it in its perspective. So there's where we're going at.
Yeah, well, you mentioned, there's more credence to our cause or what our banner might be if we play that, what I call the victim card. I have been victimized, and we're defining ourselves by our victimization. I think that's actually shooting your cause in the foot.
Yes.
You're going into the dialogue, the conversation, the environment with a mindset, I am a victim. You're going to find not only reasons to be victimized, but you're going to invite more reasons to be victimized.
There's something about that, right?
Yeah. So you actually create the very environment that you're trying to avoid because you're claiming it.
Well, there's some 10-second back. Don't we have the little buttons there on the player? Play that over and over again, because there's the human condition right there. We're all guilty of it. I'm not, it's hard to point fingers outward. Like you always say, better start here first.
Well, I'm starting with me, and so what I just spoke is coming from personal experience.
Yeah.
When I have come into any situation with a mindset of being the victim, I have created the very thing I fear.
That's right. It furthers it, doesn't it? Yep.
Isn't that Job who said that? I've created the very thing I feared the most.
There it is.
I was contemplating that thing, and it happened.
It happened. All my kids are gone. Yeah. Well, here's the other thing that I think about when it comes to this persecution thing, this marginalization of Christians in America. Maybe it's time for Christians, us, to step back and say, well, why? Why do I think in what ways do I think I'm being persecuted? And then say, well, why would that person, that entity, that, whatever, why would they be doing this?
Two little words come to mind when you're asking that question.
Yeah.
And it may not be the nicest thing to say. Karma sucks. For those who have persecuted, when it comes back to you, wow, how come I'm being persecuted? We might want to look at our history. We might want to look at our past actions. We might look at our current behaviors.
I think
there might be some karma involved here.
Well, you don't even have to start using the excuse or the example of look what we've done in the past to peoples, even to ourselves.
Yeah.
Christians against Christians. I mean, it's happened all throughout history, right? But today, here we are today, and I tend to think, and my perspective ends up being a lot of the time, it's not, people aren't diminishing or marginalizing the religion. It's about how it's being proclaimed and how it's being lived out that I see the problem. People are very tolerant when you act like Jesus.
Yeah.
Who's going to argue with love your neighbor, love yourself, love one another? The marginalized, the poor. Those are all really beautiful things.
I think the number one thing, any religion, regardless of what religion you follow or don't follow, it works for atheists as well, is to every day examine, am I incongruity? Are my actions and my words and my interactions with people incongruity what I believe to be the essence of my life, of my religion, of my spirituality, my belief system.
Yeah, my faith.
What's at the core? Because kindness and love and compassion and generosity are at the core of all the world religions.
Right.
But if I don't take time to examine that I'm out of congruity with that, I might want to do some inner work before I start pointing the finger at somebody else who's persecuting me. There might be a reason.
We talked in our old podcast about flipping the card. It's just so easy to take the persecution card and flip it out there in any discussion, in any place you want to go with it, to think you're just going to shut the conversation down. I'm being persecuted, so therefore
I'm a victim.
Yeah, so whatever we're going here from here is invalid. I mean,
exactly. I've shut down any progress, any possibility of something being better.
Yeah,
and yet the very man that I follow, my main guy is Jesus. He said it from the cross. He could have been up there whining and complaining, I'm being persecuted. He said, forgive them.
Yes.
They don't know what they're doing. And look what happened. The whole world is transformed because he was able to go to that place.
Well, I think we've got a whole lot of I don't know what I'm doing is going on right now.
Yeah.
And we have to call it for what it is in ourselves. And I don't think we need to be so passive at times at not calling it out in culture where we see it, where these ideas that are actually harmful to people and to culture and to society because they just perpetuate themselves.
Well, and that's where Jesus is a great example. He did not keep his mouth shut about challenging ideas and systems, but he was soft on people. And can we do the same thing? Let's take it out of the personal attack that you're my persecutor and go, the system is set up and it's not working. So be courageous and passionate about challenging systems and organizations, but don't make it about an individual because that's where the true persecution comes.
Well, you just made a statement there that I think if we don't come to this realization that it ain't working, right? It's just not working. We've got history behind us, and we look around us and we say, "Are you kidding me? This is what we think is where we've applied our life and our faith and our beliefs to have a society and a culture in a world like this."
I love sitting down with my colleagues, Christian colleagues, Jewish colleagues, imams, Muslim, and all of the above, native people. We sit down and we basically agree, this isn't working. What we're doing isn't working, so let's make it work around this small table of 10 of us. And we also talk about very openly, the political system isn't working. And they might think or vote differently than me, but let's start with the premise, what we're doing is not working. That's the definition of insanity. Just keep doing it. Let's just rock the boat a little bit and try something different.
If we don't, guess what? Like you say, it's perpetuating the same old. I don't want to attack a person, but this is a common belief that many, many, many fundamentalists, especially Christians, have. I'm just going to quote John MacArthur, but believe me.
That's a good one.
He isn't isolated in this. This just happens to be a commonality. And so here's what he said. This is years ago, but it never changed. Many Christians shy away from stating unequivocally that the Bible is truth and that all other religious systems and worldviews, we're going to take it even one step further, and worldviews are false. Now, you can believe that is true if that's what you believe, but don't think for a second that when you proclaim that truth that you believe, that we aren't going to have friction.
You're inviting friction.
I mean,
it in itself, that statement is indicative of a persecution that has happened. That's now coming back. Karma is coming back to bite you in the butt.
Yes.
And I have met very few Christians. I actually really celebrate and shine a light on my Christians who are not afraid to share their faith.
Yes.
And to do it openly and honestly in love.
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
But
I did it
throughout
for years.
history, it has been shoved down the throat of people to be made wrong, to be made evil, to be made less than. And so the pendulum's coming back to the other side. There are times people are going to emphatically and loudly push back against that idea. You don't need to be afraid of it. How do we, on either side of that equation, come to a more compassionate place? Let's share ideas.
Yes.
I don't know. Sometimes I can do that, and sometimes I cannot.
I agree, because I get a little bent around the axle sometimes when this goes to a place that Rob Bell is great at this. He'll start with a premise, and then he'll say, well, if that's true, then let's go to the next thing that propagates. Oh, well, then if that's true, and you follow it all the way down, and then you get to the end, whatever the end is, and you shake your head and you go, wait a minute, I started here. How can I end up down here? That doesn't make sense. And at the same time, if this stuff continues to get propagated, these ideas continue to be propagated, there's going to be not only pushback, but there's going to be hot friction.
Well, there's consequences. It's a
There it
domino
is. I like
effect.
that word. It's good.
And again, I always appreciate you, Matt, because you're willing to step into the fire to call out a system or an idea that is going to have effects down the road.
Yeah.
And that's not easy. But are we letting fear of the friction drive the boat, or are we letting the truth emerge between us, that there might be a greater truth than what you said or what I even believe?
Right.
I like the phrase that a friend of mine speaks all the time. Some people think, not this is the truth, no, this is the truth, no, this is the truth. Some people think this. Can we explore, put it under the center of the table and explore that idea?
That's a great approach, man. We talked about just the word maybe.
Yeah,
Right?
maybe.
Just to throw that out there.
Have we lost
Maybe.
the art of communication, the art of listening, the art of whatever that might be that gets us to the greater truth? So we've shut down God, we've shut down truth at the altar of being right.
Right. The whole hold it tightly, it's your white knuckles. Right.
Whether it's fear-based or not.
Well, what happens so often is, and I didn't think this, believe me, for years and years and years, I never would even go to this place that said, can you even consider that for all the good, and I certainly acknowledge all the good that Christianity,
Tons of it.
throughout the ages has done, of course, it can't diminish that. But understand as well, and nobody likes to go here, think about all the harm that adopting certain tenets of the Christian faith has done to the world, has done to people, has done even currently, that it has a negative effect. And people typically will not go there. It's all, rainbows and unicorns.
The myopic view of Christianity or Islam or any of the world religions is I'm only looking at the sweet stuff, the good stuff, the happy stuff, and not looking at the history, which if you don't, you're an imbalanced system. Right. Because there is the dark to look at as well. We can learn from the dark as much as we can from the light. Yes. But until we're willing to be vulnerable enough to open up a corner of our mind that we can do that better than we did 5 years ago. 50 years ago, 5,000 years ago. I believe that honors Jesus, Muhammad, Abraham, all of the great Moses, all of those great prophets can be honored because there's growth, there's forward movement. But if we've lost the ability to be vulnerable enough to go, we've made some mistakes. Oh. And I look at that as our country. I'm going to own a political statement that might be irritating. I know I have some close friends that think what they call the apology tour of our president, Barack Obama, went around and he owned that we're not a perfect nation. Right. We have not always been perfect. I was so excited for the growth that could happen. Now, I believe it got shut down because it was too vulnerable for the country or whatever the mindset was at the time. But I think religions can do that. Yeah. Let's look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and let's grow from it.
Well, it's one of the things that contributed to Jimmy Carter not getting reelected, that he was calling it like it was through the early 80s. And there was the hostages and all the oil embargo and all that. And he lamented on national television to the American people, we're basically, I don't have the exact words, but we're miserable. All right. We're in a bad place right now. We emotionally, physically, countrywide, politically, and he was honest. It was true, but that's not what the American people wanted to hear. Right. They couldn't grid that properly. And a lot of times what you're talking about, that ability to be able to step back and say, how can we do this differently? It's an evolutionary process, and sometimes you have to give up and you have to change your theology, the way you look at Theo, okay? The way that you look at God and how you grid your faith and what are the tenets of it. Has that evolved? Does it need to evolve?
Well,
or
and I'm saying
so shut down.
Be the first one to do it. Right now we're in a very middle school mentality. Well, you go first. You do it first, and I'll do it. Yeah. And everyone's waiting for somebody else to make a move. And the reality is we need to be the ones that make the first move. And then you hinted on the sensationalism of what sells and what doesn't sell. Let me go to the other side of the aisle. News has been sensationalized, and it's about it's about dramatizing some point to the extreme to win. to conquer. And we're in this argument of, well, you dug your heels in first. And it's like, it is such middle school. He hit first, so I hit back, and I'm justified. And everybody's being persecuted by the other side, and nobody's willing to say, I need to stop the persecution.
Correct.
Let me quit judging and fighting back and digging in my heels, because it's my soft underbelly might be exposed.
Well,
and
I might
you
pick
might
you up some
attack me.
stuff.
We're afraid of each other.
Well, that's right. We're afraid of each other's ideas.
So persecution is coming from fear.
Right.
The fear of your ideas that might tear my house of cards down.
Well, and you brought up a good point earlier on. I just want to reemphasize it again. That don't think for a minute that Christians don't persecute others.
I've been a recipient of that.
I mean, hello, if you aren't a Christian, whatever, you could be an agnostic, you could be any other faith. I had somebody tell me one time, Rev, as we were discussing the Bible and we were talking about some different things and the truth of the Bible and talking about a Hindu, right? And I remember they commented to me and said, well, what are you listening to that for? There's no way in the world they can bring anything but confusion to you got everything you need right there in the Bible, you know? And it's attitudes like that. And a lot of times you don't even realize it because that's what you've been weaned on. That's the Kool-Aid that you drank. Mm-hmm. You can't even conceive of the fact that you are persecuting, first of all, somebody else in that attitude. So stop being so damn pious.
There was a group I used to love called the Imperials. I don't know if you remember them. It's a Christian singing group. And they had this song, and I can't believe I sang these words. Something to the effect of, Buddha was a man, and I know that he did well. But I pray for his disciples, lest they end up in hell. There was an impression of anybody who had a different thought.
Well, it isn't. So what? Things like Latter-day Saints. What about the Quakers? What about any other Pentecostals? Or, I don't know, fill in
others.
The blank.
Any definition of othering people.
They get persecuted. And don't
right now, the Baha'i people are the most persecuted people on the planet.
So, would you please pull your head out of the you-know-what here? We got to do that. All of us. We are just victims of our own complacency and our own myopic vision.
Well,
I
don't know the exact quote, but somebody once said that the most dangerous thing of the human race is that we're so convinced of our own purity. That's the most dangerous thing happening on the planet. We're convinced that we are completely innocent of any of this. And I'm saying we all need to we all on it. You're not innocent. You all belong. You're in the circle. And I be the first one. It's an Edward Markham quote I love. And it says, they drew a line that shut me out. A rebel, a heretic, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle and brought them in. So is it possible to draw a circle and bring those that I've labeled as my persecutor? Can I demonstrate a different way? I believe that's what Jesus would do. I believe that's the Christian way. I believe it's the spiritual way. Is that possible? And do I have to sacrifice something for it? Probably. But sacrifice means to make sacred, to make holy. Can I draw circles and risk being persecuted in order to transform the persecutor? Does that make sense?
It does, and here's the thing about that. You can't be bashful either to other people by saying the circle is a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and that may run contrary to somebody else's perspective and opinion, an idea about how it all works. But in my life, I'm not about to shirk a responsibility that I believe I have to say, I'm sorry, but a circle is better than a line. And that's just, hello, I'm not afraid or intimidated to say that. So, justification, we use it all the time. Stop being so pious in the way that we are beating people over the head with God, or at least using God as an end-all to end-all end to a conversation and a justification. We just got to get off of that, because why do you think Christians get marginalized because they proclaim these kinds of attitudes towards other people.
Is it possible? Let's just examine this, that there is a God, a Godhead, the divinity, that has been made in the image of mankind itself, that is a persecuting entity, a persecuting personality. This is the God that we're espousing, that would punish you, that would tear you down, that would cause famine to happen upon you and disease and put you into a personalized torture chamber designed just for you. That's a persecuting God that I cannot believe in.
Correct.
But if you're believing that kind of God, is that an invitation to be persecuted?
To do the same thing.
It's acceptable.
Yeah.
Those who are being persecuted need to first look, including myself, at where have I persecuted somebody else? What belief have I held that has kept somebody at bay from my love, my heart, and my spirit?
Because I have looked at God, the universe, the divinity. I've been looking at that wrongly. I have just had a grid that allowed me to justify everything you were just talking about. So you're going to have to give up some of your worldview at some point that helps make it better.
Well, this is what Jesus did when he came to the planet. You know, here we are at the time of his birth doing this podcast. And he said, we believed in this kind of God, this punishing awful, and God is a God of love. It was a different message. Now, Paul went back a little bit and took it a whole different direction. That's another podcast. But the reality is the Christ of us is called to be the first one to step in, to walk into Jerusalem and create a new Jerusalem.
Yes. And one of the things Jesus was really good at as well, he would call out not just the irony, but how people they would do the very thing that they're railing against. That other people in this country, let's forget about Christians and faith-based stuff. Let's talk about people with lifestyle, people with color, have we forgotten? Women. Oh my gosh.
Still happening
Do you
today.
realize what we're talking now much more significant in most cases. It's hard to make the blanket statement, right? But think about all the other people in America that Christians are marginalizing and or, quote, persecuting. If you think about that.
Yeah. Right, left, it's in the news every day.
To get so high and mighty. And again, let me back up. I'm not implying or saying that there aren't some instances out there where the Christian faith, people with that faith haven't been marginalized or treated unfairly or whatever it might be. I'm not saying that at all because it's true. Again, we just went back. Stop using the word persecution and then look, like you say, internally to go, well, wait a minute. If I think that's happening to me, what might I be doing? Going the other way, right? You're great at that. Yeah.
It's important to recognize, and I have friends who did this, who grew up in a very Christian, beautiful, loving environment, and sheltered, if you will, a life of Christian privilege, because our society was set up for privilege for the Christians,
right?
Not the others. And then they get out into the real world, and somebody just says, well, here's what I think. And then they call it persecution. Their naivete says, no, that's not the truth. But in my little bubble, it wasn't the truth. So we have to get out of our bubbles. But you talked about Jesus confronting things. And he said, you hypocrites.
Right.
You hypocrites. And I wanted to look at the etymology of hypocrite. It just means a stage player. It's in ancient Greece, actors wore masks and spoke from beneath them, hence interpretation and from underneath, which means we're not in congruity with that which is underneath. We're playing a role. So when we are in judging somebody or we are in a place of hypocrisy, we're not in a place of congruity with the God essence, the way we were created, and the goodness. So we look beneath the masks of the persecutor.
That's great.
The hypocrite who's persecuting me and saying he's persecuted in the same thing. Let's remove the masks and let's look beneath the surface to the truth that's happening spiritually, which means we have to step away from the human condition. My victimhood, or you as any story that has to have a hero, a villain, or a hero. A hero, a villain, or a victim. It's a story that needs to die. It needs to stop. And most religion is founded upon those three things.
Wow. Yeah.
I have a villain, a victor, and a hero. And that needs to die, or religion is going to die, as we know.
There's the story we tell ourselves right there. Right? We talk about that all the time.
And that's lived experience. I'm going to own it for myself.
Sure.
I've lived that. When I gave up my victim stance, or somebody calling me the villain, I don't play that anymore. Everything began to change.
Wow.
My life became fuller and richer, and I believe the same is true for Christianity,
I think
for all the world religions.
I think that's a principle. That's a universal principle that just says those can be the results of attitudes like that are open, that are willing. And you got to stop any kind of idea that as I suffer, I welcome it because now I'm godly. I'm self-righteous. There's something about suffering for God that you were talking about karma, right? You were talking about karma earlier. If I go out there with this martyrish kind of mentality, this pious mentality, then number one, I'm going to be persecuted so that I can say I was persecuted, so that I can say I'm godly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a loop that you go through that needs to be broken.
But if I define myself by being persecuted, by suffering, I will just invite more of the same. And I'll say it must be God's will that I suffer. God's will is, for one thing, I have come that you might have life and have it abundantly. I have come that my joy might be in you. This is what Jesus said.
I want some of that, man.
And we need to look at what we're inviting because it's not God's will.
Yes.
We've used the suffering as a means of getting our needs met because they didn't get met another way. I knew that firsthand. When I played a victim card, I got my needs met that my family didn't meet. I got the societal, poor Richard, I got the love I was looking for. And I think it's just a roundabout way to get love, and I think there's a better way to do it.
I would agree. This very much.
And I want to be the first one to lead the charge.
Well, that's the first follower, right? That's the leader in the charge. We got to start. I don't know how I want to say this. Let me see. Nowadays, we want to use the faith, the Christian faith, and the beliefs, and how first of all, we're a Christian nation on top of that. And so therefore, if that's the dot you connect between your faith and your Christianity, and we have a Christian nation, now it gives you free license to take one step further, and now to apply it to the culture. Now to apply it across the board to expose everybody legally as it presses down from a political standpoint. Now it presses and persecutes those that don't believe the same way.
In the name of Christ, I can persecute you. God's on my side. And as I study my own Christian beliefs and my own Christian study, it's not what Jesus taught. It's not the Christian religion at all. Here is a man who reached across the boundaries and the borders and called out persecution and said, no, I'm not going to participate in that. I'm going to go meet them on their territory. I'm going to reach my hand, my heart, my spirit across the aisle, if you will, across the differences and build a bridge.
You know how I think he did that in my mind, that I get a little snarky about,
Go for it.
And he basically challenged his followers. He knew he wasn't going to change the Romans. That's a given. He was able, in certain ways, to go after the Pharisees a little bit, that you see, whether the Nicodemus thing is really the way it happened or not, I don't know. But I think what Jesus really said to everybody out there is, stop wringing your hands and whining about it. Look, if you continue to do that, just like you're talking about, Rev, it's going to perpetuate itself.
Yep.
You're going to keep round and round. It's going to come around, and you're going to get it again, probably even worse, as you propagate this idea that poor, old, pitiful me.
And the more you propagate it, the harder it is to get out of it.
That's right. So let's bring a message to this episode.
Okay.
Right? Let's kind of just rounded into a focus that says, I'm going to give a few cents, you give your few cents, and we'll see what happens. Stop using the word persecution. It sensationalizes whatever marginalization a Christian or you or whomever the Christianity may be facing. It's a false representation of what's going on in America. Let's qualify that, right? Number 2, let's work toward realizing how we contribute, how Christians contribute to the problem, as well as whatever solution we might think we have. Third, let's, oh gosh, okay, I got to be careful about, let's try and realize the significance of how we are proclaiming the Christian faith, that it's way more about how it's being proclaimed, not what's being proclaimed necessarily. When you're marginalized people and tell them they're sinners and all this other kind of stuff, that's the way you believe and that you proclaim your faith. This is where the
could it be
pushback.
that a lot of truth is lost in the errant delivery system?
I agree.
The delivery system is not in
There it
congruity
is.
with what is being delivered.
There it is.
My 2 cents would simply be to you, to me, to anybody in my field. There's more to you than what happened to you. There's more to you than what somebody said about you. There's more to you than your knee-jerk responses and reactions to other people. There's
Right.
more to you. Our job is to find that more, to look for that more, to cultivate and nurture that more within you so that you have the capability to wrap your arms in a circle and not just bring up a weapon and draw the line.
That's worth more than 2 cents.
Okay, I'll make it 4.
All right, I'll acknowledge it that. So great conversation. I think this is one of those real big friction points out there right now that perpetuates into greater and greater and greater issues and problems that we always have to try to sort out on top of everything else. So,
well,
thanks
Mother
for
Teresa
bringing.
said that clearly. If we we have forgotten that we belong to each other.
There we go. Well, I belong to you, brother.
Amen.
Thank you much, man. What a great episode. Cool. So we will come back and do it again next week. We'll dive deep again, huh?
Sounds good.
Thanks a
I'll get
bunch.
a bigger shovel.
Take care.